This is essentially the start of a new era. This is the start of a new podcast by Aircraft Interiors, and Anthony is the first person to join us on our little journey. The aim is going to be to do this every week or every other week, and have star, celebrity profile guests. And our first celebrity of the day is none other than Mr. Anthony Harcup. Hello, Anthony.
Celebrity. I'm honoured to be number one, Matt. So,
well, always a pleasure. Yeah, but no, I think we say that in jest, but I think that is actually somewhat accurate. I think from all the work that you've done over the years in Red Cabin and all the various different conferences and stuff, everybody knows you, right? I think you are a bit of a celebrity. I think that's fair. You're famous. You're like a Simon Cowell of the aircraft interiors industry.
I need some bigger moves for that. I actually got told a stunning likeness to Michael Douglas by a customer the other day, which I think he thought that was a compliment. I did. So you do know he's 80, yeah.
Well, like a young Michael Douglas, right? So
yeah, I'm still not sure about that one. It still doesn't sit well with me.
You get to marry a Welsh chick then as well, which would be good, right?
Yeah, there is always that hope.
Yeah. Keep it in the family, right? So that's always nice. But for everybody else that doesn't know you, because there might be a few, tell us a little bit about yourself first. Like, where did you start? What was like kind of the starting blocks for Mr. Harcup?
If we went way back,
yeah,
I knew I wanted to be a designer from the age of 5, believe it or not, from the age of 5, and I see it in my son now as well, like, because he's got an obsession with Lego, and it mirrors mine. He's maybe more crazy about it than I was.
But were you a Lego fan growing up?
Oh, it was everything to me. Like, because going back then, like I even at school, I had a handwritten note from my mum that I'd photocopy every week, and I'd used to white out the date and replace the date, just so that I could skip like PE, physical education, for those of you who don't know the abbreviation. And I would sit in the lunch hall and draw. And I used to draw cartoons, Lego all the time. And my first thing, like I was saying, when I was 5, I wanted to be a Lego designer. And effectively, I didn't realize at the time I wanted to be a product designer. So I was just really into art, really into maths, absolutely loved maths. Wow. Yeah, so I ended up I did for my A levels, I did design technology, art and art history, and maths. Okay. And then went on to a course after that where you got to have a go over 1 year. We got taught by artists, designers, 3D designers, sculptors, all different sort of photographers. And we did like a month with each. And then at the end of that, they said, you'll be a good product designer. And I was like, right, I'll do that then. So that was it. Did product design and just loved it. Got a job straight out of university, where I studied in De Montfort in Leicester, where that was taught by a design consultancy, who got to use all of the workshops for free if they taught a course as well. So they were always coming in with bags under their eyes, like where they've been redlining it, trying to get a deadline out, and then teaching us. But I was learning off of a lot of the commercial projects that they were doing. Because I'd often go in and they'd show me what was going on.
What kind of commercial projects? Were they mainly like kind of transportation or furniture?
No, product,
just a mixture.
Product and furniture. So just various bits of furniture for like I don't know, Vitra, or it would be something for Sony or Samsung, like some kind of electronic consumer goods. So we were getting a really good education on all of that. And building models and doing all the technical side, all the technical drawings and stuff. So I really loved all that. And then there was a company called Hodges and Drake Design in Leicester that had been started by 2 guys that had graduated from that course. It was just up the road from there. So I started off in the workshops making vacuum forming tools and all this kind of stuff.
No
So I
way.
started out like at the kind of let's say at the bottom of the hill on, you know, where the drawings would come down from the design office. I'd have to make the prototypes. So like that gave me a real solid appreciation for the manufacturing side of stuff. So I started then working up into creating those drawings into the studio, and then slowly into the design and the concept side of it. So I did that for 5 years on consumer product design. Really, that was my entry into the design world in like 20.
So what happened next? How did you, like, what was the big break into aviation? How long have you been in aviation, first of all? Tell us that.
20 years now. It's 20 years. It's 20 years this year. I started in 2005.
Okay.
At Acumen in London.
Right.
And,
so from your early design days, post the Montford, working, kind of trying to, you know, please and do everything. What was the leap from there to Acumen? How did you get there?
Well, funnily enough, it was after 9/11. Like it floored a lot of companies, and because Acumen used to be called Design Acumen, and they had to fold the company because it was such a devastating blow, where, you know, every contract fell out of you know, pretty much most agencies. They were quite lucky to stay afloat at the time. They reformed, and so I got in there when they'd been running for about a year. So there was just the three partners, and Edson.
Okay.
Designer, obviously.
So Edson, Ian, who were the other two in there?
Ian, John, and Nige, the two other partners. So the office was, you know, it was tiny. It was just size of your living room, you know, not even that. But there was the boom that happened after 2000, you know, after 9/11. You know, once it picked up again. You know, obviously Acumen had done the first bed in the sky and had been the go-to agency for a couple of years beforehand, a couple of years following. So there weren't really a lot of established players. So when things started up again, the work really poured in. So, you know, we expanded really quickly. And, you know, that's when I started to run a lot more jobs and help to coach some of the team. And like the difference was phenomenal. I felt from working on a product design where, you know, you might have anything from you know, low tens of thousands to maybe 100, you know, to work on a product in a very small team, because you're in quite a closed kind of team when you're working on a product. It's generally the marketing and sales department, and maybe then their manufacturing people. So it's a small team, small budget, and then it just gets distributed. So whereas going into aircraft, it was a whole new world. Suddenly you're part of this massive team. They're like tens of billions of dollars of, you know, on like a huge fleet of wide bodies, and you're responsible for delivering the jewel in the crown on that aircraft. You know, so a lot of the work I was doing with Acumen at the time was it was working quite technically on, you know, blue sky products at the time, because a lot of airlines back then, they wanted to do their own seat layout, you know, and that meant we would need to develop a mechanism to go into a new LOPA. We'd be patenting LOPAs with the airlines and then developing the new mechs that would make them work in a certain way. So it was true blue sky stuff. Almost every project was a blue sky program. We were inventing a new layout for, I think it was Contour at the time we had a strategic partnership with. So, you know, that was I didn't realize it at the time, what an amazing education that was, to work so closely with the seat OEM and so closely with the airlines, bringing about these landmark projects, what would become landmark projects, because obviously the industry after that, it started to get a lot more platform based. And, you know,
did you start off, do you think, working more with COEMs or airlines? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it the airline or the COEM typically in the early days?
So we were very close with, so you know Ben Battelle. So he was the commercial director of Contour at the time, and he was a group commercial director of PAIG, Premium Aircraft Interiors Group. And he and Ian had a very close friendship, and they worked together a lot. So, you know, whenever an airline came through with Ben, he would bring acumen along. And you know, it gave them an edge at the time to have a consultancy that could, you know, do live lopers in meetings and not just show, here's our platform product. It would be the next day would have done a visual and would come in with something that matched their brand and met the brief on the logo. So we were offering a really advanced service, but because we were in with the COEM, with the airline, it was kind of both. You know, yeah, because the airline wanted to be able to talk passenger experience in there, as well as crunch the numbers. And if we turn up, you know, with Ben, they can have a much more meaningful conversation.
So do you think there was a point where it kind of then spread and you kind of started leaving the COEMs behind a little bit and started, because I know in the latter years at Acumen in particular, obviously you were doing, you know, pretty big projects directly with some of the leading airlines. Did you feel that kind of change, or was it still kind of one-offs that it was airlines?
I don't know if it was us that changed or the industry that changed. There was a big shift around the 2010 kind of timeline. Between 2010 and 2015, it used to be that designers would get a cabin or they would get a seat, and you might have 2 or 3 designers working on different parts of an aircraft. And I think when the whole brand led, you know, you're telling the story of the airline throughout the aircraft, it made a lot more sense to have one agency at the helm, to be able to create a brand vision and bring that brand alive through every touch point. You need that holistic story, you know, and it's understanding that story of who the airline is now, and how they need to adapt for the passenger of, well, I mean, a lot of these aircraft are taking 2 to 3 years to deliver. Yeah. And then they're going to be in service for another 5 or 6 years. So you've kind of got you've got a bit of crystal ball here as well, and a bit of understanding today's consumer and who's going to be tomorrow's consumer, and just really understanding then how do we need to update the brand and the experience so that it's still relevant, it's still true to their principles and their promise, and who they are, but it's more relevant for the future. It's more future facing and relevant. So, you know, that if you do that's a sentence that becomes a paragraph that, you know, snowballs into an entire aircraft of visual language and secrets to reveal, and surface finishes, and you know, and product experiences. But it starts from that sentence, and I think when you move the designer to the front, if it's a designer that has some kind of appreciation for the way that things get made and the way that the process happens, you could really understand where all of the opportunities to innovate, I call them, where's all the little golden opportunities, where's those golden nuggets, where are they hiding in the cabin? And you know which areas you can change and customize within the realms of a program. You can really bring some differentiation. So I think when that started to happen, we started to see the huge programs, those huge shifts. And I think the first big one actually was, maybe I was very fortunate to be a part of, which was Etihad, because they formed the Etihad Design Consortium, which was Acumen, Honor Branding, and factory design. And that was one I played a I was fortunate enough to play a significant role in that with Acumen and with those other agencies. And Honor, we just worked super close together, and Honor were responsible for that brand vision. And then Acumen, we did all of the seats throughout the whole fleet, and Factory Design did all of the third spaces and the experience design throughout the fleet. So we all worked really well together, but that set a bit of a benchmark, and that's pretty much the way things are done now.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you take it, even the last work, last contract I did at Teague with the team was American Airlines, and we've rolled out that brand experience vision across. It started on the 787, and then it went through to the 777s, and on their A321 XLR, and now it's being retrofitted across their whole fleet. So it's one vision, and it really works because you've got that passenger experience is consistent for everyone on every flight.
But that was only you guys doing the new American Airlines kind of concept versus with the Etihad Design Consortium, you had 3 agencies, which is a little bit different, right? So do you think it's normal to go nose to tail, or do you mean it's normal insofar as that you have multiple agencies working on, kind of one aircraft type?
So what it used to be was an agency would be siloed. So I remember one of the first programs that I worked was with Jet Airways at the time. Okay. That was, we're not allowed to see. You see all the LOPAs coming up in the ITCMs and PDO. You'd only have your cabin would be visible and everything else would be whited out. Yeah. Because you weren't allowed to see what was going on in other programs. And I think with Etihad, well, it was a huge program, and I think at the time, James Hogan, I think he felt it was too big a job for any one agency, and I think that was because his brief at the time was, he wanted to rock the industry, like similar to how the Bed in the Sky had rocked the industry, and he had very deep pockets at the time to do that. And he just felt that was a brief that was bigger than one agency. But that said, we still got the purview of the entire aircraft and the entire fleet because we were effectively a super group, But so, you can still get a similar effect or as good an effect, with one agency, and that is how it goes more so these days.
But you need to be a big agency to be able to do that, right? So I'm curious, how well did you know, like, Peter from Factory and everybody before EDC? Were they just
personally not really very? I didn't hardly know them at all. Really? But when you're at meetings together all over the world for what turned out to be 6 years, you've got a lot of stories together.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've all got lots of stories about Mr. Tennant anyway, and hopefully we'll get him on the show as well at some point. But it's nice to see that sort of collaborative work process, and if you think about it, especially in aerospace, I mean, I've had loads of experience of the exact same thing. You get this tiny little snapshot in the corner, and please, what does it do? What do you need it for? What's it doing? What is it for? Oh, I can't tell you. It's top secret. But I think, and you think about like some of the projects we've worked on in the past, American being a great example, is that when you start and you actually tell people and you put some trust in them, I think you get a way better result when people are able to work to kind of all of their, attributes and skills. I do think it makes quite a big difference, really, right? So
yeah, I think so. I mean, the other thing as well, I think there's so many things that have changed about the industry that enable us to be so much more efficient at the process now. I mean, I mentioned before about the Blue Sky programs, like brand new LOPAs, and I mean, that's still something that happens, but very rarely.
Right. But is that because there's only so many ways you can sit on an aircraft, or is there some other external constraint that's kind of, preventing that innovation?
It's about risk. Like airlines, it's very hard for an airline to quantify how much a project is going to cost when you introduce the risk of developing a new LOPA. Right. So you often, the airline in question will have to have expertise internally that has done this before numerous times, and they understand where all of the unquantifiable risks are and understand the range, the dollar and schedule range of risk that they're looking at for each of those big ticket risk items, and then understand how to manage and mitigate those individual risks. There's also like reticence from many of the suppliers in wanting to take on the development of a new seat layout that's bespoke for one airline, because there's this capped amount of passenger places that they're going to be able to sell of that. And, so the price of each PAX place has to be exorbitantly high in order to justify all of the NRE and the time, because that's time they could have been spent developing a platform product that is going to be the gift that keeps on giving for however long. So it's actually quite difficult to find a seat manufacturer that wants to take that kind of work on in the first place, because it's a huge disruption to their commercial strategy, which will be around selling a platform seat that they've developed and monetizing that before then developing upgrades to it. And there'll be, it's quite a big thing to take on. And then there's obviously the certification as well. You're effectively turning a 3-year program into a 6-year program. So there's time, there's all the investment that you know about, which is high, the investment you don't know about yet until the risks start to unfold in the program. So I think it's given the commercial constraints on the industry, certainly following the pandemic, I think the people have realized that, or airlines have realized that what customers really want, if they want comfort, and differentiation can be served up in ways other than new seat layouts. Passenger experience, those magic moments that you remember, they're delivered. People don't know whether they've sat on a new seat layout, but the purpose of a new seat layout is to be able to give someone a premium comfort and privacy, and it's some differentiating customer experience. And now seat suppliers, have got very, very good at creating very efficient, in terms of space, very space efficient seats that are extremely comfortable, that are very private. And the advances in materials and technology, there's now so many ways of bringing that delight and surprise to a passenger that gives that memorable moments, those memorable moments that the question from a lot of airlines is, do I really need to develop a blue sky product, or do I just need some magical thinking in line with my brand, where I can deliver something through a service moment or a new feature or some beautiful styling, or there are so many tools in our toolkit now that you don't have to reinvent the wheel to blow customers away on their customer journey. And the seat is just one part of it. So it's important not to get too hung up on having to do that. There's so many ways you can brighten someone's day.
Well, we've seen a lot of that development though happen in business class, and we've seen kind of like the lie flat world adding doors, bigger space, more privacy, all those kind of things. And yet most of us kind of trudge our way through the narrow corridor back to economy class. I feel like we haven't seen, apart from the utterly ridiculous stuff, we haven't seen that many innovations in economy. Do you think you can still have the same kind of touch point and customer experience in coach that you can in business class? And is it that we just haven't really
I should really edit my previous statements just enough to say we're talking about the premium end here.
Sure.
You know, because I agree with you. If there's anywhere where we still need to shake things up, it's premium economy and economy. And you know, there's obviously still been huge advances made in both. You know, in terms of comfort, I think is because they're incremental. People haven't really noticed just how much of a better flow. Everyone complains, but there is the seats are much more lightweight, much better sculpted. The materials technology is far better, and a lot of that is due to technology being able to, you know, iterate so much quicker on designs and to be able to, you know, stress test things in a virtual environment. And you know, we have moved things on, but I think fundamentally it needs to change, because the difference between the difference between traveling business class and anything else below it, I'm really looking forward to this. I can't wait. This is going to be an experience to, oh God. There's just this the experiential gap that you can't ignore it. You even know, even on a premium economy seat, you got 8 to 10 hours in that thing. You're going to go, oh, you're already anticipating the areas you know are going to hurt, that always hurt, because you're not laying flat, because you've got all this weight bearing down on your rump, and there's just nobody who's cracked that yet. And it's fundamentally down to you need to displace the center of gravity in your body. You know, you need to be able to provide a position that you can relax in and not be in pain. It's just about removing the pain. And we haven't done it yet. We have not done it yet, and that's just it. Or maybe we've done it, but not in a way that makes commercial sense or operational sense, or there's work to be done there. And that, I think, is the next frontier in terms of truly getting you've got to start with comfort. I mean, it's just the number one thing has to be comfort, and we haven't cracked that yet. So I think that's the next frontier.
In terms of, if you were to think of then maybe someone that might crack it, I mean, I think, you know, we've talked quite a bit already about disruptors and disruptive influences. And at the time, you know, oh my gosh, what the difference a day makes. Etihad was seen as the big disruptor. Things are a little different now. I think the flavor of kind of the economics of the Middle East changed maybe a little bit. But who would, if you had to sort of, you know, kind of bet the farm on a disruptive influence, who are today's disruptors? I mean, not necessarily, you know, a specific airline, but what kinds of airlines and operators do you think have potentially got that sort of disruptive mentality to go, yeah, we want to make a difference, we do care, and let's do it, let's make it work?
I think you need to look at the airlines that have a history, because they have the individuals that understand the nature of those programs. Like I was just mentioning before, sure. There's probably a short list of, there's probably less than, there's I would say 5 to 10 airlines out there. They're full service carriers. Yep. They have very large fleets. They're seen as very premium airlines, and they still have a history of developing groundbreaking products. And you know, there's a couple in the Middle East, there's a couple in Asia. Yep. I would say between the Americas and Europe. There's probably another couple. There's probably one in the Antipodeans. There's a short list, but these airlines, they have innovation. They all are striving for that best airline in the world spot.
Yeah,
and
tracks kind of rankings and stuff, right?
And I think they've all got their eyes on the premium economy spot at the moment. I think that's the next, because it started in first space, where you had the most space, and then first started to die because in business class we managed to get a flatbed with privacy and aisle access, and where you can get a good night's sleep and not have to tread over anyone. So as soon as we managed to get that in business class, it's like, well, why am I going to pay for first? And so then you're starting to see already, and part of it is because of product development. I think largely what we've seen over the pandemic has been a huge shift towards the premium, what we call premium leisure market. Which are those there was a huge shift globally that business class is a much more of a rare company perk now, and it's often premium economy if it's anything. So you've got a lot more business travelers now traveling in premium economy, and you've also now got with changes in the aging demographic and in travel behaviors, you've got people who want an experience, and they want it from door to door, and they're prepared to pay a little bit more. And we've seen a huge surge that we haven't seen that stop yet. It's not leveled off. We don't know where the bottom of that one is, or the top of that one, we should say, because like premium economy now is still on the up and up, and it's scheduled to increase for at least the next 6 to 8 years. So that's the market that's going to continue to grow. And just like business class did, the need for differentiation is going to become that's going to become the holy grail for a lot of the airlines. So how do we create? But you've got to be careful here, because you also you don't. Airlines are very cognizant that they don't want to cannibalize their business class by making premium economy so good that no one then pays for business class. So I think there's a fine line to surf between removing the pain of premium economy, but not creating a commercial risk factor to your installed base of business class products.
Yeah. So does that come back to almost the economics of the price point, that how much utilization and how much extra facilities, how much better experience can you get, but within that bubble of a PY seat? Because obviously if PY got all this great innovation, but all of a sudden it's $3,000 a return ticket, then it doesn't really hold that much value compared to maybe a $4,000 or $5,000 business class ticket, right? So does it fundamentally kind of come back to that bubble of cost, and what are customers prepared to pay for an improvement in experience, and what's the impact of that, whether it's their own money or whether it's company money, right? Those are things that we kind of have to consider, I guess. But
well, premium economy came about in the early 90s because there was such a delta between business class and economy class.
Right.
So what we had was the introduction of a new class, and we've seen that quite a bit. We've seen class segmentation happening in all sorts of ways. Even if it's just the introduction of economy plus or business light, even down to, you look at a lot of the carriers, like a lot of the LCCs, who now want to be called LCC plus, because they have repitched some economy seats at the front and upgraded them slightly with better headrests and maybe put a seat blocker in the center so it kind of mimics a business class. That's not quite regional first.
No.
You know, but it's not economy. So we've seen that, and then even upcharging for, you know, the overwing exits. I mean, that's yet another recognition of another class of seat. And I think there's space in between potentially business and premium economy. You know, if you have that bit more pitch and something slightly more comfortable, you know, I feel the market will tell us, but it's going to take an airline that has the vision to really invest in that and test it, you know, and find that magical break point between experience, price, and offer.
So the typical pitch of a PY seat right now today is what, 38, say, inches, give or take?
It depends on the carrier. It'll go from like 30, I think it's like 30, 37 up to up to like 40, I think 40, 41.
Seen a 40, my gosh, I haven't seen a 40. And then business is going to be, I suppose your pitch is limited by the fact that you have to fundamentally create a bed, right? So what are we pitching there? Like 60 typically, more, or sticking around 60 mark?
Pitch is a difficult one because if it's, you know, if it's a herringbone product, you're looking at 45 you get good bed and a 45-inch product. If it's forward and aft, you know, if it's a well designed, like fairly dense, you'll get a bed out of like just 65-inch pitch. If it's forward facing, but
because
it depends.
I mean, if we get to the point where we can create so let's say that the absolute best case scenario for a business lie flat is 45-inch, and then the top end is say 40, 42 in a PY, right? Can you get to the point where you've got enough recline, but without impinging on the passenger behind you, to create a genuine sleep cell for the occupant? Do you think that's possible in a PY sort of configuration?
I know it's possible. I mean that's what I mean. You know, there's
contact DeepBlue for further information. Yeah,
you know, we got things cooking in the kitchen, and the issue isn't necessarily whether it's possible, because we know it's possible. The issue is a commercial issue and a positioning issue. Right. Like, I think the airlines need to have the appetite to change, and they need to know how it's going to sit within their suite of offers across their aircraft, and how it's going to affect their business. Because the kind of airlines that would take it on have massive business class installed base of business class. And so, you know, there's that tension that I was talking about, you know, about cannibalizing that business class. So I feel that, you know, there's the products, or at least the prototypes and the ideas exist. I think I've often thought it's not going to be until a disruptor new airline decides that they're going to create an all premium economy airline that flies ultra long haul. Okay. Right. So I would see like a 787 packed full of this new premium economy seat, and it will and they will be able to sell, if you can get a good night's sleep comfortably on but with an airline for, you know, of half the price of a business class ticket, and they can pack that aircraft to that it would be something like that that has got to force everybody to rethink what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, do you think you need to be fully flat to sleep, or can you right? Okay, I agree with you. I don't think you need to be.
How many times have you fallen asleep on your sofa?
Yeah, exactly, right.
You know, and you're quite comfortable because you're in a recumbent position, and all of your weight isn't bearing down on your rump. And you might not even move for 3 or 4 hours. You're just able to. Your head's got something where the weight's taken off, and you're not got a neck ache, and you've not got a bum ache, and your legs are comfortable. That is a position that you can produce and package and tessellate successfully on an aircraft at the magic number. But I think it's all about positioning that and how it fits in the grander scheme of things, you know.
I had a very interesting conversation, one of many, with a good friend of mine, Peter Vink, Dr. Peter Vink, right? And a lot of people obviously would probably know him. We think there's a magic number for recline, and we're both sort of agreed on it. We think it's 140 degrees. If you can get 140 degrees recline, you can sleep in a semi kind of upright kind of position. But it'd be interesting to see, you know, kind of how that challenge kind of comes about, right? And I think it's got to be driven by something or someone, and I don't think we're quite there yet. But
I'm not sure that there's just, you know, that's what I mean. Boiling comfort down to an angle, I struggle with that because I feel like it's about head support and leg support as well.
Sure.
Because I can get into quite a nice, comfortable position. Like I would say, you know, BA's premium economy goes to it reclines a long way.
Yeah.
You know, but there's always the issue I find. What do I do with my legs? I can never get my calves comfortable and in the right place on any seat. You know, and then with your head as well. I feel like you need adequate support for your head and adequate support for your calves and your legs. So I feel like there's a few elements to balance in the weight of all of the heavy sections of your body.
Yeah. There was an interesting patent by Heiko as they were changing from Timco. Obviously, they were Bryce before that. For what was it called? The Vector Plus from Heiko for Cathay, and it was a guy I've worked with for a long time. He's a great you know, kind of inventor. A guy called Sam Ahad that used to be the design director for Bryce, and the headrest folded out so that it gave you a wider capture to be able to hold your head.
I worked on that. I worked on that with Heiko actually. Going back a few years, yeah, because they had problems trimming it because it was in like 5 sections. So you have the section at the back, then these two folded, and this one's folded again. It went in a C shape all the way around your neck. It's unbelievably comfortable. The problem with it was when it was curved around, it was all crumpled. So we did an upholstery job on that to make sure that looked a bit more sophisticated. But you're right, it was a fantastic move forward. It was unbelievably comfortable. I'm not sure what the progress of that is, but
I feel like it did fly maybe in a fabric version.
Oh, it did, yeah, with Cathay, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember at the time, because we were working on it with Sam, we were pretty close to Sam at the time, and it was a cool program. But I remember there were limitations. Obviously, we were only making stuff in leather at the time, right? And I think today, with some of the new advances of kind of like knitted backcloth construction stuff, you could really define that structure. It'd be kind of fun if anyone wants to sort of take up the challenge and reinvent it, you know, pay Sam a little royalty to let his retirement kind of get some more fishing in. I'm sure he probably appreciated it too. But it was a pretty cool project, and it's really nice to see those kind of like collaborative innovations kind of coming about. And I just wonder when we're going to kind of laser focus on that to really sort of push things forward, you know.
I just don't think it's a lack of ideas. I think there's a lot of extraneous issues, I think, within the industry at the moment. One of the biggest ones is engineering resource.
Yeah.
Because the I think there's a lot of the supply base. There's a huge amount, even just to create a LOPA, where even if you're not changing the products at all, just the amount of engineering resource required to process a standard, if you've got a standard platform product with a certain, everyone's going to have their own configuration of that on that aircraft, and the engineering required just to contribute that part so that the aircraft can get its type certificate. There's so much work there that just getting that out of the door at the moment, and to meet the demand of the industry, I think with the amount of grey matter that we lost in the industry over COVID, over the pandemic, I think there's you can't just buy that experience from anywhere. That kind of experience, it has to be grown and developed, and I think there's a shortage of it. So it's a tricky one. It just doesn't leave. You need some resource available to dedicate to new product development, and usually that resource becomes more available when you're not redlining it towards an aircraft delivery. But everyone's redlining it towards aircraft deliveries at the moment. So it's a tough spot a lot of the supply base are in, where they, in order to, just do what needs to be done, they're maxed out, and they don't have the capacity. Many of them, I can't speak for everybody, but I know in my experience, many of them just do not have that spare capacity it's a luxury to be able to have the time for a lot of them,
How long do you think it takes to build a blue sky seat if you were doing it without working to red lines? What do you think it actually takes?
I mean, in my experience, the few blue sky seats that I'll say the few, probably 5 or 6 blue sky seats that I've developed with manufacturers, there's a certain dwell time to the legal and patenting process, and then the concept process, and then the development of the prototypes, all of the reviews that go in that towards, and then customer testing towards getting to something that is a concept that is ready to sell to an airline for a new development program. Just that process alone for a business class project is a couple of years. And then the airline takes it on, and then you got actually getting it from a prototype phase to something that's flying is another 2 to 3 years. So from first, from hiring the agency in the first place to seeing it flying, I think it's something, if a proper job is 5 years. I think four minimum 4, I think, but 4 to 5 years before you see it fly.
Yeah, and you would have thought with the various delays that we've had lately that now that would have been somewhat achievable, but it still seems that we're always running, from pillar to post to get to hit a milestone. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? But very good, very good. So we talked about COVID there briefly. So you left, I suppose, was it was before COVID that you left Acumen, right? But not too far before.
Yeah, it was April 2019.
Oh, wow.
It was actually April Fool's Day. It was my very first day at Teague, and it was at the show. So
of course, yeah, of course it was. Yeah, I remember.
So yeah, that was. Obviously, none of us saw that one coming, but that was that drove things in a very different direction for, I think, everybody. But I mean, I can only speak wholeheartedly from the point of view of a designer. really.
Yep.
But that changed an awful lot of things, you know.
I bet it did. I bet it did. And today you have your own agency in DeepBlue, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So tell us about that. What are you doing? What have you been squirreling away for the last kind of couple of months? What's happening in the world of DeepBlue these days?
Well, actually, my DeepBlue's article just came out in aircraft interiors. We've been up and running since March, April time of 24. So not quite 1 year yet. As you know, a lot of projects, certainly in aviation, the dwell time is a couple of years before you can talk about it. But we have been fortunate enough to talk about one of the projects, which is launching now, and that was for Kydex.
Okay.
So, and I suppose it would make sense to tell you a little bit about DeepBlue and why we formed, and a lot of it was really to do with the pandemic. I think something that very much changed the way that we work was the restrictions on travel. So the design process is, there's so much travel usually in the design process. To be at certain meetings that would have only ever really been conducted face to face. We had a very heavy reliance on Microsoft Teams, a lot of the concept work and the presentations and the workshops being conducted in Miro, and various different tools that we developed. And obviously at T, we were working cross studios. So we had like 3-4 studios around Seattle. And with the teams that would never normally mix as much started to mix a lot more. So the teams were becoming much more integrated across all the different studios, and so I felt that was a bit of a move forward, because we were getting like more diverse inputs, and then there was also obviously I was building a team just when the pandemic started, and with travel stopping and a lot of the specialist kind of specialist designers that I was staffing up with were unable to travel over. So there was a large part of my team became global, like global workforce, global designers, and so we had to get much more proficient using digital tools. And I saw an opportunity to develop more advanced digital tools.
Okay.
And I started DeepBlue, and we started to develop an internal tool called DeepView. And this is effectively like a digital workspace that would enable a global team to occupy the same space and actually work on 3D models in a real space, be able to load a file onto your phone and be able to look around one-to-one. I can get one of the team now to just can you upload the latest 3D for CX, and I can have that appear in front of me in my room, and I can take a look around the seat, evaluate the changes, one-to-one scale. We can flip through different materials.
Wow.
And it just became something that was like, well, why isn't everyone doing this? And it's because the guys on the team are on the cutting edge of of mixing gaming technology programming with a deep understanding of aviation, interiors and processes. And so, you know, we've been able to create something that has been a real differentiator and has been able to really speed up what we're doing. And we can do detailed design reviews. I can do with a customer in an airport lounge around a model with, you know, fully rendered materials. And it's kind of the tools that we've got now. They're just, you know, there's an opportunity to build the ultimate dream team, because now location is no longer an issue.
There's no boundaries,
right? You don't have to hire people that are just live in near London or just live near Seattle. Is you know, I can have the team that are best for the job, and you know, we don't have to travel so much. I think the value that we can bring, the speed and the accuracy, and you know, I think a lot of it is down to speed now. The speed of decisions that we can make because of the clarity of thought that we have in detail is phenomenal. And I showed this technology to the guys at Kydex, and they were like, "Yes, please." We started to develop a version of that for them, which is amazing. You're able to specify in detail tiled surfaces, design your own plastics, apply them to the various panels. You know, it provides a build sheet of everything that you've specified, and then you can make your finished vision appear in front of you and review those finishes. And so, like, it's such a fantastic project. It's such a great company to work with as well. So yeah, we just released some of the information about that on Aircraft Interiors Showcase.
Nice.
Magazine. So yeah, so really excited about that. But again, like some really interesting customers that we're working with across seat and supply, but I can't talk too much about them. But
sort of watch this.
Definitely people you know, man.
Yeah, man. I bet. And obviously Hamburg around the corner. So tell me, the one thing I wanted to kind of finish up with was what is the one thing that we're not talking about that we should be, and can we find a solution for it maybe at AIX? It's all got quiet.
How is Starlink going to change? It's a bigger question, all right? It's not it's an armrest probably kind of answer you were looking for. But I look at Starlink now, and you know, I don't care what anybody says about their internet connectivity. I've yet to fly on an aircraft where at certain points throughout that flight, there wasn't either no connection or disappointingly slow connection for a large portion of it when you're going over a large mass of water. It's you know, it's forever a disappointment and a frustration. And for that reason, you limit what you believe you're going to do on that flight, and everything your experience you kind of write off connectivity for anything other than maybe messages or the odd email, because you know it's going to be patchy. Think of all the things you might be able to do, and what kind of Pandora's box is Starlink going to open up now that we're seeing there's 2 or 3 airlines now flying Starlink. We saw a very interesting presentation by Qatar Airways at the last Red Cabin, and I'm excited to see where that's going to go. I mean, even just looking at gaming, I mean, once you have the immersive experience of gaming, you know, how's that going to affect comfort? Once you're distracted from this comfort,
you have to occupy the mind as much as you have to occupy the ass, right?
And so gaming's just one aspect, because it's a low-hanging fruit of a thing that you could point at. But you know, I just feel like that's going to change IFE, and it's going to become a focus, and I think it's going to become the new battleground. And you know, certainly with the increase in of sophistication in wearables as well, that are going to, you know, how is Starlink and the evolution of AR, you know, how are those things going to be able to enhance our passenger experience? You know, I think it's going to, I think the interplay between those things and the aircraft interior, we're going to be moving in a very interesting direction, I feel.
Yeah, for sure. I do wonder if there's going to be a choke point with bandwidth constraints at some point. I mean, obviously there's only a low amount of take up at the moment. You know, are we going to get, as they grow, will they become victims of their own success? I would not like to bet against Elon. We've talked about it in the past, and he normally
don't bet against Elon. Yeah,
no,
that's a losing battle, isn't it?
Yeah, but maybe we need to get Nick from Starlink on here and have a little chat and catch up with him. I think that would be an interesting conversation, certainly.
Yeah.
So, but watch this space. But Anthony, we're out of time for today. What a fascinating chat, and can't wait to catch up with everybody in Hamburg and AIX to explore kind of some of these new and amazing disruptive technologies that we're all clearly exploring and eagerly awaiting. I think it's going to be a great ride. So.
Thank you. Thanks to Aircraft Interiors. I feel honoured to be the first interviewee, and it's been fun. Thanks, Matt.
Pleasure, man. Okay, we'll catch you on the next lap, as it were. Good man. Thanks, Ant.
Bye.